Amanda Pierce sat alone on the cold metal bench and stared at the empty darkness ahead of her. The station was silent except for the hum of failing machines somewhere in the walls. 5 days had passed since her team left without her. 5 long days of walking through empty hallways and checking systems that did not work anymore. 5 days of hoping someone would come back for her, but knowing deep inside that they probably would not. She pulled her jacket tighter around her body. The heating system was dying just like everything else on this old station. Station Kepler 442 had been abandoned months before her research team arrived to do their final survey work. Now Amanda understood why everyone wanted to leave this place. It felt like a tomb floating in space with her trapped inside it. Amanda had been on the outer ring doing her work when the evacuation alarm sounded. By the time she made it back to the main platform, her team was gone. The transport ship had left. Her communicator was broken during her rush back through the maintenance tunnels. She tried every backup system and every emergency protocol she knew, but nothing worked. The next scheduled transport would not arrive for 3 more weeks, and Amanda knew she did not have that much time left. Her supplies were running low. Water was the biggest problem. She had maybe 2 more days of water if she was very careful. Food could last a bit longer, but without water it did not matter. The oxygen recyclers were still working, but they were old and making strange noises. Amanda did not know how much longer they would keep running. She stood up and walked to the large window that looked out into space. The stars looked so peaceful from here. They did not care that she was stuck on this dying station. They just kept shining like they always had and always would. Amanda pressed her hand against the cold glass and thought about Earth. She thought about the ocean and the sound of waves. She thought about her apartment and her cat that her neighbor was probably taking care of. She thought about all the things she took for granted and wished she could see them one more time. Amanda had always been good at solving problems. At the academy, they called her the one who never gave up. She could fix almost anything and find solutions where others saw only dead ends. But this time was different. This time there was no solution that she could see. The station was too damaged. Her equipment was broken. No one knew she was here. Amanda felt something she had never really felt before in her whole life. She felt helpless and small and very much alone. On the 5th day, she sat back down on her bench and closed her eyes. Maybe this was it. Maybe this was where her story ended. She had lived a good life. She had seen amazing things and traveled to distant worlds. She had made discoveries that would help people for years to come. If this was the end, then at least she had done something meaningful with her time. Amanda tried to make peace with that thought, even though every part of her wanted to fight and live, and find a way out. She must have dozed off because when she opened, her eyes, the emergency lights seemed dimmer than before. The air felt colder. Amanda rubbed her arms and stood up to move around and keep her blood flowing. That was when she heard it. A sound that did not belong in this empty place. Footsteps. Small, quick footsteps coming from somewhere in the dark corridors behind her. Amanda's heart started beating faster. Her hand moved to the small emergency tool on her belt. She turned slowly toward the sound. Maybe it was just her imagination. Maybe she was so alone that her mind was playing tricks on her. But no, there it was again. The sound of small feet running on metal floors. Someone else was here. Something else was here. Amanda stood very still and waited to see what would come out of the shadows. The footsteps got closer. Amanda could hear breathing now. Small, fast breaths like a child running. Her mind raced through possibilities. There should not be anyone else on this station. The evacuation record showed everyone left. Unless someone else got left behind like her. Unless something else entirely was happening here that she did not understand yet. A small figure appeared at the edge of the platform. Amanda could barely see it in the dim emergency lighting. It was short. Much shorter than any adult human. It moved carefully like it was scared or being cautious. Amanda wanted to call out, but her voice caught in her throat. She did not know if this thing was friendly or dangerous. She did not know if she should run or stay or try to communicate. The figure stepped into the light, and Amanda saw it clearly for the first time. It was a child, but not a human child. The being had large eyes that seemed to glow softly in the darkness. Its skin was a pale blue-gray color that reminded Amanda of early morning sky. It wore simple clothes that looked handmade. It carried a small bag on its back, and it was looking right at her with an expression that Amanda recognized even across the barrier of species. The child looked scared but also hopeful. It looked like someone who had been alone for too long and finally found another living soul. Amanda and the small being stared at each other for a long moment. Neither moved. Neither spoke. The silence stretched between them like a bridge waiting to be crossed. Then something unexpected happened. The child's face changed. Its eyes went wide and bright. It made a sound that was part cry and part laugh. And then it ran. It ran straight toward Amanda with its small arms reaching out. Before Amanda could react or think or do anything, the small being crashed into her and wrapped its thin arms around her leg and held on tight like it would never let go. Amanda looked down at this tiny, alien child clinging to her and felt her whole world shift. The child looked up at her with those huge glowing eyes and spoke. One word in a language Amanda did not know but somehow understood anyway. The child called her Mom. Amanda stood frozen with this small alien child wrapped around her leg and holding on like she was the only solid thing in a world that kept moving. Her damaged translator device beeped weakly on her belt, but it could only catch fragments of what the child was saying. The words came out in sounds like wind chimes mixed with water running over stones. Beautiful sounds, but completely foreign to her ears. Yet somehow, when the child looked up at her and said that one word again, Amanda knew exactly what it meant. Mom. Mother. The one who keeps you safe. She slowly knelt down to bring herself closer to the child's height. This seemed to make the little being very happy, because it immediately let go of her leg and grabbed both her hands instead. The child's hands were so small and delicate. 4 fingers on each hand with soft, rounded tips. The skin felt warm and smooth like river rocks sitting in sunshine. Amanda could feel a rapid heartbeat through those small palms. The child was scared but trying to be brave. Amanda understood that feeling very well. Now that she was closer, Amanda could see more details. The child had a small nose and a mouth that curved up at the corners in what might be a smile. Its ears were slightly pointed and set a bit higher on its head than human ears would be. The large eyes were the most striking feature. They were beautiful and strange and seemed to hold entire galaxies inside them. When the child blinked, the eyes closed from the side, instead of top to bottom, which startled Amanda at first, but she quickly got used to it. The child wore a simple tunic, made from some kind of woven material that Amanda did not recognize. The weaving was very fine and careful, like someone had spent a long time making it. Around the child's neck hung a small pendant on a thin cord. The pendant had markings on it that looked like writing, but Amanda could not read them. On the child's feet were soft shoes that looked almost like slippers. Amanda realized she had no idea what species this child belonged to. In her years of space travel, she had met many different alien races, but this little one was new to her. The child seemed to understand that Amanda was confused because it pointed to itself and said a word that sounded like it had too many syllables for Amanda to catch. Then it pointed at Amanda and waited. Amanda understood. The child was trying to tell her its name and asking for hers in return. She pointed to herself and said slowly and clearly her name. Amanda. The child tried to repeat it, but the sounds came out different. More like Amanda, with each part of the name separated and musical. Close enough. Amanda smiled and nodded. The child's face lit up with joy at getting it right. Then it grabbed Amanda's hand again and started pulling her toward the dark corridors. It was clear the child wanted to show her something. Amanda hesitated for just a moment. She did not know this being or where it wanted to take her. But then she looked into those hopeful eyes and realized she did not have many other options right now. Besides, this child had been alone on the station just like her. Maybe together they could help each other survive. Amanda let herself be pulled along. The child led her through passages Amanda had not explored yet. Maintenance tunnels that were even darker than the main platform. The child moved confidently like it knew every turn and corner. Amanda had to duck in some places where the ceiling was low. Her small guide did not have that problem. They walked for what felt like a long time, going deeper into the station. Amanda started to worry about finding her way back, but the child seemed to know exactly where it was going. Finally, they came to a small door that was barely visible in the darkness. The child pushed it open and pulled Amanda inside. The room was tiny, maybe 10 feet across, and the ceiling was so low Amanda had to crouch. But what she saw inside made her stop and stare in amazement. The child had made a home here. There were blankets spread on the floor. They looked like emergency thermal sheets from the station's survival supplies, but arranged carefully to make a soft sleeping area. In one corner was a small pile of ration packs, standard station rations that should have been locked in storage. In another corner was something that took Amanda's breath away. A small growing station, real plants growing under a jury-rigged light system. The plants had broad leaves and looked healthy and strong. Amanda moved closer to examine the plants. They were not any species she recognized. The leaves were a deep purple color and they seemed to pulse slightly with their own light. When she reached out to touch one, the leaf felt warm and almost seemed to lean into her hand. These were alien plants. The child must have brought them from wherever it came from. Or maybe they were already growing somewhere on the station before it was abandoned. The child watched Amanda explore its little home with obvious pride. It went to the plants and picked a few leaves, then brought them to Amanda and made eating motions. Amanda understood. These plants were food. The child had been surviving here by eating these plants. She wondered how long the small being had been alone on this station. Days, weeks, maybe even longer. Amanda sat down on the blankets and the child immediately sat beside her, very close, their shoulders touching. The child seemed to need physical contact. Amanda understood that too. When you are alone for a long time, the touch of another living being becomes precious. She put her arm around the small shoulders and the child leaned into her side with a small happy sound. They sat like that for a while in comfortable silence. Amanda's mind was racing with questions, but she did not have a way to ask them yet. Where did this child come from? Where was its real family? How did it end up here alone? Why did it call Amanda Mom when they had just met? But those questions could wait. Right now, the important thing was that neither of them was alone anymore. The child reached up and touched Amanda's face very gently, exploring, learning. Its small fingers traced her eyebrows and nose and mouth like it was memorizing her features. Amanda held very still and let the child look. Then the child took Amanda's hand and placed it on its own face. Inviting the same exploration, Amanda carefully touched the smooth blue-gray skin and felt the warmth there. She felt the child smile under her fingers. This was how they would learn each other. Not through words, but through presence and touch and time spent together. The child yawned and its eyes started to close. It had probably been awake and scared for a long time before finding Amanda. Now that it felt safe, the exhaustion was catching up. The small being curled up against Amanda's side and within minutes was fast asleep. Amanda looked down at this tiny alien child who had chosen her as its mother and felt something shift deep in her chest, a fierce protectiveness, a determination. She would keep this child safe. She would find a way for both of them to survive, whatever it took. However long it took, they were family now. When Amanda woke up several hours later, the child was already awake and watching her with those large, glowing eyes. For a moment, Amanda forgot where she was and why there was a small alien child sitting next to her. Then memory flooded back and she sat up quickly. The child made a soft, worried sound and reached out to pat her arm. Amanda realized the small being thought she was upset or scared. She smiled to show she was okay and the child relaxed. Amanda's body ached from sleeping on the hard floor, but she felt more rested than she had in days. Having someone else nearby had let her sleep deeper. She had not realized how much energy she was using just staying alert and alone. The child seemed to understand they needed to communicate better, because it started a sort of game. It would point at something and say the word in its language. Then it would look at Amanda and wait for her to say the word in English. They started with simple things. The child pointed at the blanket and made a sound like singing birds. Amanda said blanket. The child tried to copy her and came close enough. They did this with the plants and the walls and the light and the water container. Each time the child would concentrate very hard on making the English sounds, and each time Amanda would try to remember the musical alien words. Neither of them got everything right, but they were learning. Amanda's damaged translator would occasionally beep and offer a fragment of translation. From these pieces, Amanda started to understand more. The child's species was called Cahto. They came from a system Amanda had heard of but never visited. The Cahto were known as peaceful traders and skilled engineers. They had only made contact with humans a few years ago. The child tried to tell Amanda its name again, and this time the translator caught part of it. Something that sounded like Kit. Amanda decided to call the child Kit. It was easier than the full name, and the child seemed to like it. Kit led Amanda on a tour of the station areas it had discovered. The small being had been incredibly resourceful. Kit showed her a water reclamation system that Amanda had not known existed. It was old and basic, but it worked. Kit had figured out how to maintain it without any training or tools. Just determination and intelligence. Amanda was impressed. This child was much smarter than its size suggested. They found another cache of supplies that Kit had stashed in a different hiding spot. The child believed in not keeping everything in one place, which was wise thinking. Among the supplies were more ration packs and some basic medical items. Amanda checked the expiration dates. Most of the food was still good. Combined with Kit's plants, they had maybe 2 weeks of food if they were careful. Water was better now that she knew about the reclamation system. Oxygen was still a concern, but the plants were helping with that too. Amanda tried to ask Kit how long it had been on the station. The child held up its fingers several times. Amanda counted. Maybe 20 days. Maybe more. The child had survived alone here for weeks. Amanda felt a wave of admiration for this small, brave being. She also felt anger at whoever had left Kit behind. What kind of family leaves a child alone on a dying station? Kit seemed to sense her emotions and took her hand. The child pulled her to a section of wall where it had been drawing, using pieces of charcoal from somewhere Kit had sketched pictures. Simple but clear. Amanda saw drawings of ships, drawings of several adult Cahto, drawings of chaos and separation. The pictures told a story. Kit had been with family. Something bad happened. Ships scattered. Kit ended up here. The family did not come back. Amanda knelt beside Kit and looked at the drawings more carefully. She could see the fear and confusion in those simple sketched lines. A child trying to make sense of something traumatic. She put her arm around Kit's shoulders. The child leaned into her and was quiet for a long moment. Then Kit pointed to one of the drawings. An adult Cahto figure. Kit said a word Amanda's translator caught as mother. Then Kit pointed to Amanda and said the same word. Amanda's throat got tight with emotion. Kit's real mother was gone. Kit had chosen Amanda to fill that empty space. Amanda had never wanted children. She had always been too focused on her career and her research. She liked kids well enough, but she never felt that pull toward motherhood that some women described. Now here she was on a dying station in the middle of space with an alien child calling her mom, and meaning it with every fiber of its small being. Life had a strange way of changing your plans whether you wanted it to or not. She hugged Kit close and made a decision. She would be what this child needed. She would be Kit's mother in every way that mattered, not because she had to, but because this small being had walked out of the darkness and chosen her. That meant something. That meant everything. Over the next few days, Amanda and Kit fell into a routine. They would wake up together and check all the systems. Amanda taught Kit about the machines while Kit taught Amanda about the plants. They worked on improving their living space and making it more comfortable. Kit showed Amanda how to weave simple patterns with spare wire, which kept their hands busy during the long hours. Amanda told Kit stories about Earth even though she did not know how much the child understood. Kit would listen with rapt attention and sometimes fall asleep in the middle of a story while curled against Amanda's side. Amanda noticed that Kit never wandered far from her. If she went to check a system in another room, Kit would follow close behind. At night, Kit would not sleep unless Amanda was right there. The child had clearly been traumatized by being left alone and was terrified it would happen again. Amanda made sure to tell Kit every time she went somewhere, and she always came back quickly. She wanted Kit to learn that Amanda would not abandon it. That trust had to be built slowly and carefully. Kit started picking up English words quickly. The child was very bright and seemed to have a gift for languages. Within a few days, Kit could say simple sentences. I'm hungry, I am cold. Where are you going? Thank you, Mom. That last one always made Amanda's heart squeeze. Kit said it often and always with such open affection that Amanda could not help but smile. Amanda taught Kit some basic human gestures. Thumbs up for good, nodding for yes, shaking head for no. Kit taught Amanda some Cahto gestures in return. Touching foreheads meant affection and trust. Pressing palms together meant agreement or promise. Humming in a certain pattern meant contentment and safety. They built their own hybrid language from bits of both cultures. On the 10th day since finding Kit, Amanda made a breakthrough with the communication system. She managed to get a weak signal working on some frequencies. It was not much, but it was something. She started broadcasting a distress call that included both their locations and the fact that a Cahto child was with her. Kit watched her work and seemed to understand this was important. When the first signal went out, Kit clapped its hands together in a gesture of celebration. Amanda allowed herself a small moment of hope. Maybe someone would hear them. Maybe rescue was possible after all. She looked at Kit, who was smiling up at her with complete trust and love. Whatever happened next, Amanda knew one thing for certain. She would protect this child with everything she had. Kit had become her family, the most important thing in her world, and Amanda would fight like hell to make sure they both survived to see what came next. The days began to blend together in a rhythm of survival and small moments of joy. Amanda found herself measuring time not by clocks but by Kit's needs and routines. Wake up and check on the child. Make sure Kit ate enough of the purple plants. Work on repairs while Kit played nearby. Tell stories at rest time. Sleep together in the small, warm room they now shared. It was a simple life, but it had a kind of peace to it that Amanda had never experienced in all her years of rushing. Between research stations and missions, Kit's plants were thriving, better than Amanda had dared to hope. The child had an instinctive understanding of what the plants needed. Kit would touch the leaves gently and seemed to know if they needed more water or different light. Amanda's scientific training told her this was probably something the Cahto learned culturally, but it looked almost like magic when Kit would hum to the plants and they would seem to lean toward the sound. The plants were producing oxygen at a steady rate, and the air in their section of the station actually felt fresher than it had before. Amanda worked on expanding Kit's hydroponics setup. She found some old growing trays in storage and cleaned them out. Kit showed her how to plant new starts from the existing plants. They worked together with their hands in the soil mixture Kit had created from station waste and nutrient packs. It was messy work, and Kit would laugh when Amanda got dirt on her face. That sound of Kit laughing became Amanda's favorite thing in the universe. Pure and joyful and completely trusting, the child was teaching Amanda things without meaning to. Patience, for one. Amanda had always been the type to rush through tasks wanting to get to results. Kit moved slowly and carefully and showed her that taking time could lead to better outcomes. Kit also taught her about living in the moment. The child did not seem to worry much about the future. When Kit was eating, Kit focused completely on the food. When Kit was playing with bits of wire and making patterns, Kit was absorbed in that task. When Kit curled up against Amanda at night, Kit fell asleep without the racing thoughts that kept Amanda awake. There was a lesson in that kind of presence that Amanda was slowly learning. On the 12th day, Amanda decided to tackle the emergency shuttle. She had been avoiding it because the task seemed too big and the chance of failure too high. But their supplies would eventually run out no matter how careful they were. If no one responded to her distress signals, then the shuttle might be their only chance. Kit followed her to the shuttle bay and watched with interest as Amanda opened the access panels. The shuttle was in worse shape than Amanda remembered. The previous team had stripped out some parts to use elsewhere. The power cells were dead. The navigation system was completely fried. Amanda sat back on her heels and felt despair creeping in. This was impossible. She did not have the parts or the tools or the expertise to fix something this broken. Kit came over and patted her shoulder. The child said in careful English that it would be okay. Amanda wanted to believe that, but she did not see how. Still, she started working. Even if it was hopeless, she had to try. Kit helped by holding lights and passing her tools. The child could not understand the technical aspects, but Kit was good at anticipating what Amanda needed next. They worked for hours until Amanda's arms ached and her eyes burned from focusing on tiny components. Kit brought her water and food and made her take breaks. The child had become very good at taking care of Amanda, just as Amanda took care of Kit. Over several days, Amanda made slow progress. She cannibalized parts from other systems that they did not need. She rewired circuits and bypassed damaged sections. It was like putting together a puzzle where half the pieces were missing and the other half did not quite fit. But gradually the shuttle started to look less like a wreck and more like something that might possibly work if they got very lucky. Kit seemed fascinated by the work. The child would watch Amanda's hands and try to copy her movements with small pieces of wire. Amanda realized Kit was learning. The Cahto were supposed to be natural engineers, and Kit was proving that reputation true. The child was absorbing everything Amanda did and starting to understand the logic behind it. Sometimes Kit would point out a connection Amanda had missed or hand her a tool before Amanda even asked for it. They took breaks from the shuttle work to maintain their living space and care for the plants. Amanda taught Kit some simple games from Earth. Kit taught Amanda some Cahto games that involved patterns and memory. They drew pictures together on the walls. Kit's drawings were getting more detailed and Amanda's were getting less stiff and formal. Kit drew pictures of them together. Always the two of them side by side or holding hands. In every picture, Kit drew Amanda much bigger than Kit, as if Amanda was a giant protector. It made Amanda both proud and terrified that she might fail this child who trusted her so completely. At night, Amanda would lie awake and think about what would happen if they did get rescued. Would Kit's people want the child back? Would Amanda be allowed to stay in Kit's life? Would Kit even remember her years from now when the child was grown? These thoughts kept her awake long after Kit had fallen asleep. She would watch the child sleeping peacefully and feel her heart break a little. She had not wanted to love this much. She had not been prepared for how fiercely protective she would feel, but there was no going back now. Kit owned her heart completely. On the 15th day, the distress beacon got a response. Amanda was working on the shuttle when her communicator beeped. At first, she thought it was a malfunction. The device had been glitchy for days. But then she heard a voice. Crackly and faint, but definitely a voice. A woman identifying herself as Captain Helen Brooks of the cargo ship Meridian. They had picked up Amanda's signal. They were 3 days away. They were coming. Amanda's hands started shaking so hard she had to put down her tools. She called for Kit, who came running. Amanda played the message again. Kit did not understand all the words, but understood the emotion in Amanda's voice. The child hugged her tight, and Amanda hugged back. They were going to survive. Someone was coming. They were going to be rescued. But even as relief flooded through her, Amanda felt something else. Fear. Once they were rescued, everything would change. Kit would probably be returned to the Cahto authorities. Amanda would go back to her life. They would be separated. The thought made Amanda feel sick. She had only known Kit for days, but it felt like the child had been part of her life forever. How was she supposed to just let go and move on as if this had never happened? Kit seemed to sense Amanda's distress. The child took Amanda's face in small hands and made her look into those big glowing eyes. Kit said very clearly in English that Amanda was Mom. That was not going to change. Kit did not understand about governments and authorities and legal custody. In Kit's mind, they were family now, and family meant forever. Amanda held Kit close and made a silent promise. She would not abandon this child. She would fight to stay in Kit's life however she could, even if it meant changing all her plans and giving up her career. Even if it meant moving to Cahto space or learning an entirely new culture. Kit had chosen her, and Amanda chose Kit right back. Whatever came next, they would face it together. That was what family meant. That was what love required. Amanda spent the next 3 days in a state of mixed emotions. Relief that rescue was coming, battled with anxiety about what that rescue would mean. She tried to prepare herself and Kit for the changes ahead, but it was hard to explain complicated concepts when they still shared only partial language. Kit seemed to pick up on her mood and became extra clingy. The child would not leave Amanda's side even for a minute, and had started having trouble sleeping again. She contacted Captain Brooks several more times as the Meridian got closer. Helen Brooks had a kind voice and seemed genuinely concerned about their welfare. Amanda explained about Kit in as much detail as she could. She described finding the Cahto child alone and how they had survived together. Helen listened carefully and then told Amanda something that made her stomach twist with worry. The Cahto had filed reports about missing families in this sector. There was a good chance Kit's biological family was looking for the child. Amanda looked at Kit, who was playing with some wire nearby, and felt her heart breaking. Of course, Kit's real family would want the child back. They were probably desperate with worry. Amanda had no claim on this child beyond the bond they had formed in these desperate days. A bond that might not mean anything legally or officially. She was just the human who had been in the right place at the right time. Or maybe the wrong place at the wrong time, depending on how you looked at it. But when she looked at Kit and saw how the child smiled at her with complete trust and love, Amanda knew she could not just hand Kit over and walk away. This was not about legal rights or biological connections anymore. This was about a child who called her mom and meant it. A child who had nightmares and only Amanda could soothe them. A child who had learned to laugh again because Amanda made silly faces during meals. How could she explain to lawyers and officials and Kit's biological family that she was Kit's mother in all the ways that actually mattered? Amanda tried to talk to Kit about it. She used simple words and gestures to explain that Kit's first family might be found, that there might be other Cahto adults who knew Kit before. Kit listened with a confused expression. Then the child very deliberately took Amanda's hand and placed it over Kit's heart. The gesture was clear. Amanda was Kit's family now. The past did not matter as much as the present. Kit had made a choice, and children have a wisdom about these things that adults often forget. The Meridian arrived on schedule on the 18th day. Amanda and Kit stood on the platform watching through the window as the cargo ship carefully docked with the failing station. Kit held Amanda's hand so tightly it hurt, but Amanda did not complain. She understood the fear. Change was coming, and neither of them knew if it would be good or bad change. Captain Helen Brooks came through the airlock with 2 crew members. She was a tall woman in her 50s with short gray hair and sharp eyes that looked like they had seen everything space had to offer. But when she saw Kit, those sharp eyes softened. She approached slowly and knelt down to Kit's level. She did not try to touch the child or force interaction. She just smiled and said hello in a gentle voice. Kit pressed closer to Amanda but nodded back politely. Helen's medical officer was a man named Paul Chen who looked barely older than Amanda. He wanted to check them both over, but Kit refused to be examined unless Amanda was right there. Even then, Kit kept one small hand locked around Amanda's wrist. Paul was patient and kind. He did not push. He worked around Kit's fears and managed to do a basic health scan. Both of them were dehydrated and a bit malnourished, but otherwise healthy, considering what they had been through. Helen took Amanda aside while Paul distracted Kit with some kind of handheld game device. She explained the situation clearly and without sugarcoating anything. The Cahto diplomatic mission had been contacted. A family named Torin had reported a missing child that matched Kit's description. They were traveling to meet the Meridian at the nearest station. The journey would take 4 days. After that, Kit would be evaluated and most likely returned to the Torin family. Amanda felt like someone had reached into her chest and squeezed her heart. 4 days. She had 4 days left with Kit. Then the child she had come to love as her own would be taken away. She asked Helen what rights she had as Kit's rescuer and caretaker. Helen's expression was sympathetic but not hopeful. Human and Cahto law was still being negotiated in many areas. Custody of children was complicated. Biology usually won over circumstance. Amanda was not Cahto. She was not related to Kit. She had no legal standing. Amanda wanted to argue. She wanted to fight and demand and insist that she was Kit's mother now. But she also knew that Kit deserved to be with people who shared the child's culture and biology, if those people truly loved Kit. She could not be selfish. She had to think about what was best for Kit, even if it destroyed her. The crew of the Meridian were kind. They gave Amanda and Kit a small cabin to share on the ship. It was clean and warm and comfortable. Kit explored every corner with wide eyes. The child had never been on a working ship before, or at least could not remember it. Everything was new and exciting. Amanda tried to share Kit's joy, but her mind kept counting down the hours they had left together. That first night on the Meridian, Kit could not sleep. The child kept getting up and checking that Amanda was still there. Finally, Amanda pulled Kit into bed with her and wrapped both arms around the small body. She told Kit that she would always love the child no matter what happened. She promised that even if they had to be apart, she would never forget Kit. She said these things knowing Kit probably did not understand all the words, but hoping the emotion would come through. Kit surprised her by responding in careful English. The child said that Amanda was mom forever, that Kit would never forget either. That their hearts were connected now, and distance could not break that connection. Amanda had no idea where Kit had learned such concepts, but she held the child close and cried into those soft blue-gray curls. Kit patted her back and hummed one of those Cahto songs that meant safety and love. Over the next 4 days, Amanda tried to make every moment count. She taught Kit everything she could think of. She told stories about Earth and humanity. She taught Kit how to tie shoes and how to make funny shadows with hands and light. She taught Kit simple songs and games. She wanted to leave Kit with as much of herself as possible, so the child would have those memories even after they were separated. Kit, in return, taught Amanda more about Cahto culture. The child showed her hand gestures and explained what they meant. Kit taught her about the plants and why they mattered to Cahto people. The plants were sacred in a way. They represented life and hope and connection to home. Every Cahto carried seeds from their family plants. Kit's little growing setup on the station had been the child's link to a life before all the trauma and loss. Helen Brooks watched them during those days, and Amanda could see the captain's expression grow more troubled. On the 3rd day, Helen sat with Amanda while Kit napped. She told Amanda that she had been thinking about the situation. The Cahto had traditions around adoption and extended family that were different from human customs. There might be options that would allow Amanda to remain part of Kit's life, but it would depend entirely on what Kit's biological family wanted and whether they were willing to consider unusual arrangements. Amanda latched onto that slim hope, even though she tried not to. She did not want to build up expectations only to have them crushed, but she could not help imagining scenarios where she got to stay connected to Kit, where she could watch the child grow up, where Kit would always know that Amanda loved and wanted the child. Those daydreams helped her get through the waiting, even though she knew they might come to nothing. On the fourth day, they reached Frontier Station 7, where the meeting would take place. Amanda dressed Kit carefully in clean clothes that the Meridian crew had provided. She combed Kit's soft hair. She made sure the child's precious pendant was clean and visible. Kit was very quiet. The child seemed to understand that something big was about to happen. When it was time to go, Kit grabbed Amanda's hand and held on tight. Together, they walked toward whatever future waited for them. The conference room on Frontier Station 7 was designed to be neutral and welcoming to all species, but to Amanda it felt cold and impersonal. She sat in one of the human-sized chairs with Kit pressed against her side. The child had barely spoken since they arrived, and those big glowing eyes kept darting to the door as if expecting something terrible to come through it at any moment. Amanda kept her arm around Kit's small shoulders and tried to project a calm she did not feel. Captain Helen Brooke sat across from them along with a station diplomat named Gregory Stone, who would be moderating the meeting. Gregory was a middle-aged man with a kind face but serious eyes. He had explained the process to Amanda earlier. The Torrin family would come in. There would be a period of identification to make sure Kit was actually their missing child. Then they would discuss next steps. Gregory had been very careful not to promise anything or give Amanda false hope. His job was to facilitate and make sure everyone followed proper procedures. The door opened and Amanda's breath caught in her throat. 3 Cahto adults entered the room, 2 males and 1 female. They were taller than Kit but still shorter than Amanda. Their skin was the same blue-gray color and their eyes held that same inner light. They wore formal clothing that looked ceremonial in nature. Rich fabrics with intricate embroidery. All 3 wore pendants similar to Kit's but larger and more elaborate. The female Cahto saw Kit and made a sound that needed no translation. It was the cry of a mother who had lost a child and found them again. She rushed forward with her arms outstretched. Amanda felt Kit tense and press harder against her side. The female stopped abruptly when she realized Kit was not running to her. Confusion and hurt flashed across her face. She spoke rapidly in Cahto, and the room's translator system rendered it in flat mechanical English. She was saying Kit's real name over and over. She was calling the child her baby. She was begging Kit to come to her, but Kit did not move. The child looked up at Amanda with fear in those expressive eyes. Amanda's heart was breaking, but she knew she had to try. She gently encouraged Kit to at least say hello. Kit reluctantly stood up but kept hold of Amanda's hand. The child spoke a few words in Cahto. Polite words according to the translator, like greeting a stranger rather than a parent. The female Cahto's face crumpled and one of the males put his arm around her shoulders to support her. Gregory Stone stepped in smoothly. He suggested they all sit down and talk calmly. He activated the translator system to full capacity so everyone could understand each other clearly. The Cahto family introduced themselves. The female was Lyra Torrin. The males were her bondmates Kef and Solon. In Cahto culture, multiple parenting bonds were common, and all 3 of them were Kit's parents. They explained what had happened to separate them from their child. The story came out in pieces between Lyra's tears. The Torrin family had been traveling on a transport ship through this sector 6 weeks ago. They were moving to a new colony where Kef had taken a job. Pirates attacked the transport. In the chaos of the attack, the ship had to make an emergency stop at Station Kepler 442 to make repairs. The station was supposed to be abandoned, but the transport captain knew the old codes. During the confusion of the repairs and the fear of another attack, their child had wandered off. By the time they realized Kit was missing, the pirates had returned. The transport had to flee or be destroyed. They assumed Kit was still on the ship somewhere and would be found. When they searched the transport thoroughly and Kit was nowhere to be found, Lyra said she knew in her heart that her baby was back on that station. They tried to return, but the station had been sealed. They filed reports with every authority they could find. They had been searching desperately for weeks. When Helen Brooks contacted the Cahto diplomatic mission with news of a found child, Lyra said she knew immediately it was Kit. She had never given up hope. Amanda listened to all of this with a sinking heart. These were good people, loving parents who had been torn from their child by circumstances beyond their control. They had not abandoned Kit on purpose. They had been searching and grieving. They had every right to their child back. Amanda had no right to stand between them. But when she looked at Kit, who was still clinging to her hand, she could not help but hope there was some way to make this work for everyone. Gregory asked Kit some questions. He was gentle and patient. He asked if Kit remembered the Torren family. Kit's answer through the translator was hesitant. The child remembered some things. Faces that seemed familiar. Voices heard long ago. But the memories were unclear like dreams. Kit had been very young when separated, and the trauma had apparently blocked out much of the past. To Kit, these adults were strangers who claimed connection but felt foreign. Then Gregory asked Kit who Amanda was. Kit's answer was immediate and certain. Mom. Amanda was Mom, the one who found Kit when Kit was alone and scared, the one who kept Kit safe and fed and warm, the one who told stories and made Kit laugh, the one who promised never to leave. Amanda was family in the way that mattered most to Kit. Right now, in this moment with these feelings, Lyra made a sound like a wounded animal. She looked at Amanda with eyes full of pain and anger. She said through the translator that Amanda had stolen her child's heart. That Kit should love her, not some human stranger. Amanda wanted to defend herself, but what could she say? It was true in a way. She had not meant to take Kit's love. She had not wanted to replace anyone, but she could not undo the bond that had formed between them in those desperate days on the dying station. One of the males, named Solan, spoke up. His voice was calmer than Lyra's. He said they needed to think about what was best for Kit, not what made the adults feel better. Kit had been through trauma. Kit had lost the memory of them and found safety with Amanda. Forcing an immediate separation might do more harm than good. He suggested they take time. Let Kit adjust. Let the child remember the Torren family slowly, while maintaining the connection with Amanda. Maybe there was a way to honor both relationships. Lyra looked like she wanted to argue, but Kef squeezed her hand. He said Solan was right. Their child's well-being had to come first. If Kit needed Amanda, then they should not take Amanda away. The Cahto had traditions for this kind of situation. Adoption bonds, extended family networks, children with multiple parents from different circumstances. It was not common, but it was not forbidden either. Gregory looked at Amanda and asked if she would be willing to consider a shared arrangement. Would she be willing to help Kit reconnect with the Torren family, while remaining part of the child's life? Amanda's answer came from her heart without hesitation. Yes, she would do whatever was best for Kit, that meant sharing custody and learning Cahto ways and splitting her time between human and alien space. Then that is what she would do. Kit was worth any sacrifice or change. Kit was her child now just as much as Kit was the Torren family's child. Maybe Kit could have two families. Maybe that would be enough. Lyra looked at Amanda for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She stood and walked over to where Amanda and Kit sat. She knelt down in front of them. She reached out slowly and touched Amanda's free hand. She spoke in Cahto and the translator carried the words. She said that she could see Amanda loved Kit truly. She could see that Kit felt safe with Amanda. As much as it hurt Lyra's heart, she had to accept that Amanda was part of her child's story now. She asked if Amanda would consider becoming Kit's second mother officially, under Cahto law and custom, so that Kit could have both families and never feel abandoned again. Amanda felt tears running down her face. She looked at Kit, who was watching the adults with wide, hopeful eyes. She looked at Lyra, whose own eyes were wet with tears. She looked at Kef and Solan, who were nodding encouragingly. Then she looked back at Kit and saw her whole future in that small, trusting face. She said yes. The next few weeks were complicated and emotional and sometimes painful, but also full of small moments of hope. The Torren family rented quarters on Frontier Station 7, and Amanda stayed there too with Kit. Gregory Stone helped them navigate the legal requirements for establishing a formal shared custody arrangement. There were documents to file and officials to convince. Some human authorities questioned whether a human should be raising an alien child. Some Cahto authorities questioned whether the Torrens were making a mistake, but Kit's clear preference for having both families made the decision easier. Kit slowly began to warm up to Lyra and Kef and Solan. At first, the child would only interact with them if Amanda was present. The Torren family was patient. They did not push or demand. They would sit nearby and tell Kit stories about when the child was very small. They showed Kit pictures and videos on their data devices. Gradually, Kit started to remember things. A song that Lyra used to sing, a game that Kef played, the smell of a particular food that Solan cooked. The memories came back in fragments, but they came back. Amanda watched this process with mixed feelings. She was happy that Kit was reconnecting with biological family, but she also felt jealous and scared that she would become unnecessary. Kit seemed to sense her fears. The child would check on Amanda constantly, would climb into Amanda's lap when the memories got too overwhelming, would hold Amanda's hand during meals with the Torren family. Kit was making clear that gaining one family did not mean losing the other. Lyra struggled the most with the arrangement. She loved her child fiercely, and every moment of Kit's preference for Amanda felt like a rejection. But she was trying. She and Amanda had long talks late at night after Kit fell asleep. Lyra told Amanda about Kit's early years, about the first words and the first steps, about Kit's love for growing things and how the child had started the plant collection before being old enough to walk, about the lullabies and the games and all the small details that made Kit unique. Amanda listened and learned and felt grateful that Lyra was willing to share these memories. Amanda told Lyra about the days on the station, about finding Kit and how the child had survived alone for so long, about Kit's bravery and intelligence, about how Kit had saved Amanda just as much as Amanda had saved Kit. Lyra cried when she heard about her child being alone and scared. Amanda cried too. They cried together for what Kit had endured and for what they had all lost. Those shared tears built a bridge between them. Not friendship yet, but something like understanding. Kef and Solan were easier for Amanda to connect with. They were both engineers like Amanda, and they bonded over technical discussions. Solan taught Amanda about Cahto growing techniques and why the plants were so important to their culture. Each family line maintained their own variety of plant. The seeds were passed down through generations. Kit's plants were direct descendants of plants that had been in the Torren line for hundreds of years. No wonder Kit had such an instinct for caring for them. Kef showed Amanda Cahto games and entertainment. Many of them involved patterns and spatial reasoning. Amanda found them challenging and fun. Kit would play with both of them, and Amanda could see the child relaxing more each day. Kit was starting to believe that having two families was possible, that Amanda and the Torrens could coexist in Kit's life without competition or jealousy. They established routines that helped everyone adjust. Kit would sleep with Amanda some nights and with Lyra other nights. Meals were shared together, so Kit learned to see all the adults as one extended family unit. They took turns teaching Kit things. Amanda taught human customs and language. The Torrens taught Cahto traditions and values. Kit soaked it all up like those precious plants soaking up water and light. One day, about 3 weeks into this arrangement, Kit asked Amanda and Lyra to do something together. The child wanted both mothers to braid Kit's hair in a traditional Cahto style. Amanda did not know how, but Lyra patiently taught her. Their hands worked together in Kit's soft hair. Kit hummed contentedly between them. When they finished, Kit looked at their reflection in a mirror and smiled. The child said in careful English that this was perfect. Two moms making one braid, working together. That was what family should be. After that moment, things got easier. Lyra stopped seeing Amanda as a threat and started seeing her as a partner in raising their shared child. Amanda stopped feeling guilty about loving Kit and accepted that she had earned her place in this family. The Torren males had already accepted the situation and were happy to see the mothers finding peace. They started making plans for the future. The Torrens were still moving to their new colony. Amanda's research position was flexible enough that she could work remotely from anywhere. They decided that Amanda would relocate to the colony too. She would have her own quarters near the Torren home. Kit would split time between both households. When Kit was older, the child could decide how much time to spend with each family. But for now, they would all live close and raise Kit together. Helen Brooks came to visit before her ship departed. She had followed their progress with interest. She told Amanda that she had seen a lot of strange things in space, but this arrangement was one of the most unusual and beautiful. She said it took real love to share a child rather than fight over one. She told Kit to remember how lucky the child was to have so many people who loved them this much. Kit nodded seriously and hugged Helen goodbye. The legal arrangements were finalized with help from both human and Cahto officials. Amanda was recognized as Kit's adoptive mother with full parental rights under Cahto law. The Torrens were recognized as Kit's primary biological family. Both families had equal say in Kit's upbringing and education. Kit would carry both the Torren family name and Amanda's family name. The child would be raised with knowledge of both cultures and would be free to choose which traditions mattered most when old. Enough to decide. On the day they left Frontier, Station 7 to travel to the colony, Amanda felt nervous and excited. She was leaving behind her old life completely. She had resigned from her research position and signed a new contract with the colony's science division. She was moving to Cahto space where she would be the minority. She was committing to raising a child which she had never planned to do. Her whole life was changing because of one small being who had walked out of the darkness and called her mom. Kit held her hand on one side and Lyra's hand on the other side as they boarded the transport ship. Kef and Solon carried their luggage and Kit's precious plants. The child chattered excitedly about the new home and the new school and all the things they would do together. Kit kept saying we, meaning all of them together. Kit no longer saw a separation between the two families. To Kit, they were just one big family with 5 parents who all loved the child in different ways. Amanda caught Lyra's eye across Kit's head. They shared a smile. It was not perfect. There would be hard days ahead. There would be disagreements about parenting choices and cultural differences to navigate. But they were in this together. They were building something new. A family that crossed species lines and proved that love was bigger than biology or tradition. Kit had brought them all together. Kit had made them into something they never could have been alone. And that was worth every sacrifice and change. 3 months after leaving Frontier Station 7, Amanda stood on the observation deck of the colony and watched the sun set over an alien landscape. The sky here was different from Earth. It had 3 moons and the sunset lasted longer with colors she had never seen before. Purples and greens mixed with orange and gold. Kit ran up beside her breathless from playing with other Cahto children in the common area below. The child grabbed Amanda's hand and pulled her toward the window to watch the colors together. This colony world was called Verath, and it had become home faster than Amanda expected. The Cahto who lived here were welcoming once they understood that Amanda was Kit's second mother. Some were curious about the human who chose to live in Cahto space. Some were cautious but polite. Most were simply kind. They helped Amanda learn their language better. They invited her to community gatherings. They treated her like one of them because that was what Kit needed, and the Cahto put children's needs first always. Amanda's quarters were small but comfortable. She had a bedroom and a workspace and a small growing room where she and Kit maintained their plants. The Torren home was just down the corridor. Kit could run between both homes freely. Some mornings Kit would wake up in Amanda's bed. Other mornings Kit would wake up with Lyra and the males. It did not matter where Kit slept. The child knew both places were home and both families were safe. Amanda had adjusted her work schedule to match Kit's school schedule. The colony needed scientists and Amanda's skills were valuable. She studied the local ecosystem and helped develop better growing techniques. Her human perspective sometimes led to insights that Cahto scientists had missed. She was building a reputation and a career that she was proud of. Different from what she planned but good in its own way, Kit was thriving in ways that amazed everyone. The child who had been traumatized and alone on a dying station was now happy and confident. Kit laughed easily and made friends quickly. The child excelled at school, especially in anything involving growing things or patterns. Kit spoke both Cahto and English fluently and was learning a 3rd language just for fun. The child's teachers said Kit was bright and curious and kind to others. Amanda felt proud every time she heard these reports. The relationship between Amanda and the Torren family had deepened over these months. Lyra had become not just Kit's other mother but also Amanda's friend. They talked about everything from parenting strategies to their own hopes and fears. Lyra taught Amanda to cook traditional Cahto foods. Amanda taught Lyra about Earth customs. They laughed together over their mistakes and celebrated together over Kit's achievements. The jealousy and tension from the early days had faded. Now they were partners united by their love for one special child. Kef had taken Amanda under his wing professionally. He was senior engineer at the colony's infrastructure division, and he helped Amanda understand Cahto technology. Many evenings he and Amanda would work together on projects while Kit played nearby. Kev said Amanda thought about problems differently than Cahto did, and that difference made them a good team. He had become like a brother to Amanda in many ways. Solon was the quietest of the three Tauran adults, but also the most perceptive. He seemed to understand when Amanda was homesick for Earth or struggling with feeling like an outsider. He would suggest walks or bring her favorite human tea that he ordered from supply ships. He told Amanda stories about Cahto history and philosophy. He helped her understand the deeper meanings behind Cahto customs. Solon made Amanda feel less alone in her choice to live so far from her own people. Together, the five adults created a family structure that worked for them. They had weekly meetings to discuss Kit's progress and any issues that arose. They celebrated both human and Cahto holidays. They supported each other through difficult times. When Amanda got sick with a local virus, the Taurans took care of her and Kit. When Kef injured his arm at work, Amanda helped with his physical therapy. They functioned as one unit even though they lived in separate homes. Kit seemed to understand how special this arrangement was. The child would sometimes tell other Cahto children about having 5 parents. Some kids were confused. Some were jealous. Most just accepted it as Kit's normal. The child's teachers made sure to include both Amanda and the Taurans in all school communications. The community adapted to this unusual family and made space for it. One evening, Amanda received a message from Captain Helen Brooks. The Meridian was passing through this sector and Helen wanted to visit. Amanda felt excited to see the woman who had rescued them. She told Kit, and the child got so animated talking about showing Helen their new home and their school and their plants. The whole family prepared for Helen's visit like it was a major celebration. When Helen arrived, she looked around the Tauran home where they had gathered and smiled broadly. She said she had hoped things would work out for them, but seeing it with her own eyes was different. Kit dragged Helen around, showing her everything, talking nonstop about school and friends and all the things the child had learned. Helen listened patiently and asked questions and praised Kit's accomplishments. Then she sat down with all 5 adults and listened to their stories about the last 3 months. Helen told them she had shared their story with other captains and crew members. She said people were talking about the human and Cahto family, who proved that love could cross any boundary. Some were skeptical, some were inspired, but everyone agreed it was remarkable. Helen said she believed they were pioneers in a way, showing what the future could look like when different species stopped seeing each other as separate and started seeing each other as family. Before Helen left, she pulled Amanda aside. She told Amanda that she had seen a lot of brave things in her years in space, but watching Amanda give up her old life to be Kit's mother was one of the bravest. Helen said it took courage to choose love over comfort, to choose a child over career ambitions, to choose growth over staying the same. She told Amanda that Kit was lucky, but also that Amanda was lucky too. Not everyone finds the family they were meant to have. Not everyone gets a second chance at building a life that matters. After Helen departed, Amanda thought about those words. She looked around her quarters at the plants growing in the corner, at Kit's drawings covering one wall, at the Cahto furniture she had learned to find comfortable, at the window showing an alien sky full of unfamiliar stars. This was not the life she had planned. She had wanted to be a famous researcher, traveling to important stations and making groundbreaking discoveries. Instead, she was living in a small colony far from Earth, raising an alien child with 4 other parents. But Helen was right. Amanda was lucky. She had found something more valuable than fame or prestige. She had found purpose. She had found family. She had found out that she was capable of more love than she ever knew. Kit had changed her in fundamental ways, made her softer but also stronger, made her more patient but also more fierce when it came to protecting those she loved, made her life smaller in some ways but infinitely richer in others. Kit came running into Amanda's quarters that night with a drawing. The child had made a picture of their whole family. Lyra and Kef and Solon on one side, Amanda on the other side, Kit in the middle with arms spread wide trying to hold everyone's hands at once. Above them, Kit had drawn those 3 moons and the colorful sky. Below them, Kit had drawn the plants that connected them all. At the bottom, in careful English letters, Kit had written one word: home. Amanda hung the picture on her wall where she would see it every morning. She hugged Kit close and breathed in the scent of the child's hair. Kit still called her mom without hesitation. still preferred Amanda's lap when upset, still wanted Amanda's stories at bedtime sometimes. But Kit also loved the Torrens with equal intensity. The child had room in that small heart for everyone. Kit had taught them all that love did not divide. Love multiplied, months turned into years. Kit grew taller and learned more. Amanda's Cahto language skills improved until she could think in both languages. She published papers about the local ecosystem that gained respect in both human and Cahto scientific communities. She found that she did not miss her old life much at all. She had been alone on that empty platform for 5 days, drowning in despair. Then a little Cahto boy had found her and called her mom. That moment had saved her life in more ways than one. Kit had given her a reason to keep fighting. Keep living. Keep loving. Now years later, Amanda could look back and see the path that led her here. All the choices that seemed random. The research assignment to that old station, the evacuation that left her behind, the dying systems and the fear. The moment Kit walked out of the shadows, every piece was necessary. Every moment of suffering led to this joy. She would not change any of it. Not even the hard parts. Because the hard parts brought her to Kit. And Kit brought her to this family. And this family brought her home. She stood at her window on another evening watching the sunset paint the sky. Kit was at school. The Torrens were at work. Amanda was alone in her quarters, but she did not feel lonely. She knew exactly where everyone was. She knew they would all gather for dinner soon. She knew Kit would tell them about the day with enthusiasm and wild gestures. She knew Lyra would serve food she had spent hours preparing.